All right. Good morning, traders. Good morning, visitors. This is Happy Open House Day for me. Thank you for all of you for joining me here today. Thank you so much. All right. So I want to thank all my members for subscribing. They're paying members. I appreciate that. I don't take that for granted. Good morning, Melinda. Good morning, Raleigh, Erasmo. Good morning. Good morning, Jim, Giotto, JW, everybody. Thank you for being here. Um, I don't take that for granted. I hope to provide valuable content to you every day. Thank you, everybody out there in digital land. Thank you, everybody out there in podcast land and cyberland. Thank you for subscribing to my content and finding the value in it. Thank you so much for giving my content your attention. Thank you so much. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. My SPY pivot this morning, 528.90. Above it, I'm a bull. Below it, I'm a bear. All of the Fab Five are still in daily downtrends. All right, SPY, QQQ, Diamond Dow, all made higher highs and higher lows, closing over bearish traps, but under their falling 17 EMAs. IWM, Russell 2000 made an inside day, closing inside a bearish trap under the falling 17 EMA. FNGA made an inside day also, closing over a bearish trap under the falling 17 EMA. SPY closed with a 2-hour uptrend and a 10-minute uptrend. Gold in a daily uptrend made a new all-time high on Friday. Silver still in a downtrend, made a higher high and a higher low, closing over a bearish trap and over the falling 17 EMA. USO made a higher high and a higher low, closing inside a bearish trap under the 17 EMA. UNG made a lower high and a lower low, closing under a bearish trap under the 17 EMA. US dollar index still in a downtrend, closed near the 99.84 area. We like that. SPY max pain for today is 530 with a put to call ratio of 1.4 puts to each call that expires today at 4:15. All right, let's go take a look at some charts. All right, first chart we'll look at SPY. That's one of my favorites. SPY closed. This is right here. This is Friday's candle, higher low, higher high, closing over the trap. Okay, so this yellow line underneath the white one, that's a bearish trap. So they closed over a bearish trap. And then you see the red dots right here. That's the falling 17 EMA. So they closed over the bearish trap, but under the falling 17. Got a little uptrend going on here. Got a downtrend going on there. All right, so you can see we got a ceiling overhead right around 550. All right, so we'll see how far we get with that. So there's SPY on the daily charts. Take a look at that on the 10-minute. All right, you can see we have the yellow 3 EMA up over the white 8 EMA with the candlesticks up there. We have a 10-minute uptrend going into the close on Friday. On the 2-hour chart, you can see the price candles with the 3 EMA up over the white 8 EMA. All right, so we got 2-hour uptrend going into the close on Friday. Okay, let's take a look at the game plan for today. Look at it on the 10-minute chart. Okay, for the game plan for today. All right, I like 4 days till expiration Friday options. All right. Of course, we're closed this Friday, so it's going to be 3 days till expiration Friday options. And I like 11 days till expiration Friday options. A lot of volatility right now, so I like my options to be $15 to $30 out of the money. All right, I like them cheaper like that because I got a small account. Now, if you want the very best option with the highest performance It's usually and almost always going to be the um, in the money option. In other words, if price is at 540, you would pick a 537 or a 535 or even a 532 like that. That would be in the money if you were going long. All right. So that would be in the money, and you would want zero DTE. All right. Those would be the best performing options most of the time. Okay. So it's zero DTE. All right, that means they expire at 4:15 of that day. All right, in the money means if they're calls, they're going to be under the current price. The strike price is going to be under the current price. So if the current price is 540, the 535s would be the in the money calls for that product. All right, if you wanted in the money puts and prices at 540, you would want 545 puts, okay? Because that would be above, all right? Because you want to put it to them up above there. So that would be in the money puts would be 545, and that is supposing price is right around 540, all right? So my SPY pivot, 528.90. We have a green erases red scenario, okay, over 535.70. Okay, you can see that would be price pulling back up, erasing the green. That would be green erases red. Okay, over 535.70. That would be an entry over 535.70. That would be the green erases red entry. On the southern direction, we have a red erases green entry underneath 524.60. Okay, so underneath 524.60, that would be red erases green. So all of this would be the green, all right, and red erases all of that. That would be a red erases green entry underneath there. All right, so there's the SPY game plan. Now, I like 10-minute uptrends over VWAP. I especially like it when they're pulling and ripping away from VWAP. I like 10-minute downtrends under VWAP, all right? I like it when they're pulling under and ripping away from VWAP. All right, those are the most profitable ones, the ones that rip away from VWAP. All right, VWAP is simply volume weighted average price. It's the average price that shares sold for today. All right, and it starts out new every single day. All right, so every day you get a new VWAP. It starts out at one spot. All right, starts out fresh almost every day. Even though you see it, it's connected. It does start out fresh every single day. So it's going to change and jerk around from day to day. But other than that, during the day, it will start with, well, the very first share that traded that day and will move all the way until the end of the day. All right. I don't know if it tracks options, but it does track the shares. All right. So there's SPY. That's the game plan. Over 535.70, I'm looking for a green candle. I'm looking for something that's not a topping wick. That right there would be a topping wick candle. Okay, I don't take those candles because bears have more control in that candle. Okay, that's not my candle. I'm trading on a 10-minute chart. Okay, notice there's more wick than there is body and tail. So that would not be my candle. All right, that shows me bears had control. So that would not be my candle. All right, I don't take spinning tops and I don't take dojis. All right, spinning top would be, let me show you one. Well, right here, this would be like a spinning top. Short little squat dojis, don't take those either, because that shows me bulls and bears are either pausing, all right, either that or they agree on price. Okay, so I don't take spinning tops. I don't take dojis. All right, so that would be like a little doji right there. Kind of looks just like that, but it's just a little bit more squat. All right, I don't take red candles because I'm buying a green erases red event. All right, so I want a 10-minute uptrend. All right, if it's a red candle, that's telling me that the bears are in control of that candle. So I'm not going to buy a red candle. So I want a very particular candle. I just don't want it to be a candle where the bears have more control than the bulls. All right, so I want a nice green candle to buy into. All right, I want my trade to work out. All right, I'm not ready to buy the pullback yet. I'm just starting my first trade. All right, so I'm looking for a particular green candle for the green erases red event. All right, and you can see we're already gapping up in the morning. All right, most of the time gaps get filled. All right, it would be nice to see the bears fail to fill the gap. That would be a bullish clue this morning. If the bears fail to completely fill the bullish gap, we'll see what happens. All right, but that's the game plan this morning. Lately, we've had consolidation over prior consolidation. Okay, that is a bullish clue. That is a bullish environment. So we have consolidation, okay, and then we have consolidation over prior consolidation. That's a bullish environment, okay, and then we have consolidation over consolidation. That's a bullish environment. All right, and then we go to the pre-market, post-market. All right, I'm going to take all that off, and let's visit the pre-market, post-market and see what they got going on. All right, and let's dig down into the 10. Okay, and we'll do the same exercise again. Okay, consolidation, consolidation over prior consolidation, consolidation over prior consolidation, and again, consolidation over prior consolidation. Each one of these is a bullish event. Okay, we're looking for gap fill up here. Price action has to get up to wherever we closed with this candle up there. So where is gap fill? All right, let's go take a peek at it. Put my crosshairs on that. So we closed 543.40. So let's see how far we got. Did we get to 543.40? It does not look like we got to complete gap fill. All right, so that may be a clue that the bears are operating this morning. We'll see. As long as we maintain price action structure up here, I'm going to believe they're going to keep banging away at overhead supply to fill the bearish gap down. So we have a bearish gap down. It would be nice to see the bulls fill the gap. That would be a bullish clue when the bulls fill a bearish gap. All right, so what do we want for a target? 543, I think I said 543.40. 543.40, yep. Let's change this. 543.40. All right, that's our target. Fill the gap. All right, you can still see you've got a little bit of space left up there. Okay, they may fill it in the market. They may fill it in the pre-market. We'll see what happens. All right, like to see the bulls fill the gap. That would be a clue that they're in town. All right, and still accounted for. All right, if they can't, well, then that credit goes to the bears for holding them off. All right, so we'll see what happens. There's SPY on the 10-minute chart. All right, so we got the game plan for SPY. Okay, let's go do the same thing with QQQ. All right, QQQ, we're going to dig it out on, let's take a look at this one right here. All right, QQQ. Okay, again, I like 4-day till expiration Friday options, but this Friday we're closed for Good Friday. So we're looking at 3 days till expiration Friday options or 11 days till expiration Friday options. I choose Friday options because they have more open interest. More open interest equals higher liquidity for me. All right, I like higher liquidity means a tighter bid-ask spread. That means I get less slippage. All right, so there's QQQ game plan. We have a bullish green erases red event over 456.10. All right, there's a bullish green erases red event right over that. QQQ pivot is 5 450. Okay, above it I'm a bull, below it I'm a bear. Bearish, red erases green event under 446. Okay, again, I like 10-minute uptrends over VWAP. I like 10-minute downtrends over VWAP. All right, you want to see what a 10-minute uptrend looks like? See the price candles, see the 3 EMA, see the 8 EMA. All right, this is VWAP, this burnt brown line right here. Okay, that right there is a 10-minute uptrend over VWAP. See how the price candles pull the trend. All right, see this space in between these two lines, pull these lines up, up, and away from VWAP. That is a 10-minute uptrend over VWAP. Okay, that's a playable event for me. All right, especially when it breaks the rubber band candle. Okay, 10-minute uptrend over VWAP. You want to see a 10-minute downtrend. Okay, let's pan over here. Here's a 10-minute downtrend under VWAP. Okay, notice bearish gap down. Bulls fail to fill the gap. All right, and you can see here's a 10-minute downtrend under VWAP. See the price action, the 3 EMA. All right, up under, under the 8 EMA. Underneath the falling red dots, that's the 17 EMA. You can see the trend pulling away from VWAP, the brown line. That's a 10-minute downtrend under VWAP. When price action crisscrosses the 3 crossing the 8 2 or 3 times before noon, that is a red flag. It's actually a yellow and a red flag. It's a caution flag. All right? It means price is going entering into consolidation. All right? When you crisscross back and forth, the 3 crosses the 8 2 or 3 times like this. Okay, that's just consolidating. Okay, if we look at this, you can see price action is winding up. Notice the lows get higher. See how the lows, here's a low, low gets higher, low gets higher, low gets higher, okay? And the highs get lower, all right? So price is winding up like a coiled spring to release the energy to the upside, all right? Or to the downside, either one, all right? I'll take either one, a 10-minute uptrend over VWAP or a 10-minute downtrend under VWAP, okay? Here's a nice breakout over the consolidation, 10-minute uptrend over VWAP. Playable event for me. All right, that's QQQ. Let's look at QQQ on the daily chart. And we'll head over to here. All right, I'm going to move it over just a little bit. And we just hit this. And move it back just some. QQQ. Let me get my crosshairs out. And see what we got here. That is the 10. Okay, QQQ on the daily chart. And it looks like we've got the high there is 455.79. The high there is 455.59. Higher low, higher high. Closing over the bearish trap. There's the close. But under, see the 17 EMA, under the 17 EMA. Under the all-time high anchored VWAP. That's the all-time high, that pink line. Okay, price action. No longer in the lower third, so it's just neutral. Okay, you move up and you give it up, that's neutral. You move down, you give it up, that's also neutral. Okay, so not in the lower third, that would be bearish. In the upper third would be bullish. In between, all right, in the quad lines, all right, that's neutral. So there's QQQ. Let's take a look at SPY. All right, SPY, higher low, higher high, closing over the bearish trap, but under, see the 17, those are the red dots, all right, under the 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's the pink line, okay, under the midpoint right there, so that's just neutral. It's no longer in the lower third, so there's SPY. Okay, SPY is in a downtrend because it made a lower high and a lower low. All right, so that's a downtrend. It's just not moving down now. All right, it's in a downtrend. Okay, we are experiencing a pullback in the downtrend. All right, same thing goes for QQQ. All right, you have a lower high and a lower low. See the high, low, lower high. See, there's the high, lower low. Okay, it's a downtrend. All right, are we moving down? No, we're not. We are experiencing again in QQQ a pullback in the downtrend. All right, doesn't mean the trend has changed. All right, just because we're moving up doesn't make it an uptrend. It's a series. A trend is made up of multiple candles. All right, not just one or two candles. So we've got a lower high and a lower low. We're still in a downtrend. We're just not moving down. All right, we're moving up. We are experiencing a pullback in a downtrend. That's on the daily time frame. All right, let's take a look at a few other indexes. Start with IWM. All right, IWM. Yesterday's candle is an inside day. That's a lower high and a higher low. That'd be Friday's candle, not yesterday's. Closing inside a bearish trap. All right, closing under the falling 17. That's the red dots. Okay, closing under the pink line. That's the all-time high anchored VWAP. Closing under the gold line, that's the diagonal support line, otherwise known as the uptrend line. Closing down here in quadrant, see quadrant 4, quadrant 3, quadrant 2, quadrant 1. Okay, that's bearish. Closing in quadrant 1. Okay, also in a downtrend, making lower highs. See the high, makes a lower high and a lower low. See the low? Made a lower low. Downtrend. Same deal. All right? Just not moving down. It's in a downtrend, just not moving down. And we're experiencing a pullback in the downtrend. IWM. Let's take a look at Diamond Dow. Diamond Dow got a higher low, higher high, closing over the trap. See the space between the 3 and the 8? That's the trap. We closed over the trap under the falling red dots. That's the 17 EMA. Okay, closing under the midpoint. All right, so on the bearish side of neutrality, under the pink line, that's the all-time high anchored VWAP. Under the uptrend line, okay, no longer in the lower third. Okay, no longer in quadrant 1 or the lower third of quadrant 2. Okay, so it's just neutral. Okay, you go up, you give it up, that's neutral. You go down, you give it up, that's neutral. All right, same thing applies. So there's Diamond Dow. Let's take a look at FNGA. Now we follow FNGA because it carries. It holds most of the heavyweights in FNGA, so we'll see. We like to follow it. So I'm going to take that off. It's got 10 of the most heavily weighted securities in QQQ and SPY. So we tend to follow that because these 10 tend to jerk the SPY and the QQQ around. Wherever they go, usually the index is sure to follow. So it's like the leash, and the indexes are like the dog. All right, for price action, okay, you can see we have an inside day. See that high? This is a lower high. All right, see that low? It's a higher low. That makes it an inside day. We closed over a bearish trap. Okay, see the space? This is a bearish trap. Closed over a bearish trap. Closed under the red dots. That's the 17 EMA. We closed under the pink line, it's the all-time high anchored VWAP, and we closed under the midpoint. Okay, this is bearish down here. Okay, notice this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're in the lower third. That's bearish. All right. If we happen to break out of the lower third, we'll be neutral. All right. You go up. Okay. Whenever you go up, you give it up and more. That's bearish. All right. If you go down and you give it up, that's neutral. All right. If you go up and give it up, that's neutral. All right. So right now, price action is just bearish because we've gone up, gave it up, and more. And that puts us in the lower third. So that makes us bearish. There's FNGA. Let's take a look at our technicals, T2122. I watched T2122 on the 15-minute chart. This would be Friday's price action throughout here. You can see a series of, got a little bit of a higher high here. All right, and then we made a lower low here, so expanding volatility. Then we came in made a little micro higher low, and then a higher high as opposed to this high right here. A little bit higher high, higher low, and then we came back in from the bigger perspective and made a higher high up there. Again, another higher low, and we're looking for the bulls to make a higher high, which looks like they've done that in the pre-market, post-market. So we're up here in the buyer's chop zone. Like to see us start knocking on the door of the buy zone. I may be getting ahead of myself. We'll see what happens. All right. So there's T2122. That's for the 4-week new high, new low ratio. All right. Meaning more new highs are coming. 4-week new highs are developing than 4-week new lows because we're over the 50-yard line. Okay. T2123. Okay. Got a little mini bull flag. See, the price action moves from this low up here. A little mini bull flag. All right. Price action moves up and over to the right. That's a bull flag from this perspective. From this perspective, all right, it is a bear flag. So we got a little mini bull flag inside the bear flag. Notice price action still underneath, falling 200 SMA. Notice price action not making any higher highs. We did have a bearish gap right here that did get filled. All right, that's credit for the bulls. All right, but the bulls aren't making any new highs. All right, we need to see new highs. All right, in order to get bullish on the market, higher highs. All right, they're not doing it. Notice it's a flat line, almost as like the the patient has gone into a rest right here. All right, T2123. All right, nothing happening yet. Okay, notice price action for Friday. Little red, little green, little red, little green. Okay, not really moving around much at all. That's T2123. We'll look at the same thing on the 3-bar chart. Okay, price action. You can see price action moves down and holds the lower ground. That is a bearish environment. Okay, so we've got conflicting signals, right? We've got some indexes that are moving up in a downtrend, all right? And then we've got securities, all right, with cumulative 4-week new high, new low, all right, moving down. So notice price action moving down and not bouncing. See, there's a nice V bottom bounce. We're not getting that. Notice we came down this time and we flatlined like a hockey stick over to the right. All right, and then we lingered way too long, and guess what happens? Holders of securities start to give up hope. All right, 21 days and this thing is still not moving. I better dump it. Yeah, and then we get another wave down. All right, the same thing will develop if we continue into this process yet again. All right, investors will say, that's enough, 21 days, I'm done. This thing's not moving up. And they will dump it. All right, and then it creates another wave down. Price action, like I said, it's in a little mini bull flag inside of a bear flag consolidation over to the right. Okay, again, we're not making any higher highs. Okay, see the bearish gap not getting filled. Bearish gap never got filled there. Bearish gap never got filled there. Okay, we're not filling all of the bearish gaps. Okay, we filled one, all right, from 4 days ago. All right, I'm not impressed. No higher highs yet. It's still a bearish environment. Do we have a bullish environment on the smaller time frame in the indexes? Yes. Okay, but the key, it's on the smaller time frame. All right, so there's T2123 3 bar. Let's take a look at FNGA. This is the one we watch. Friday's price action. You can see green out of the gate, little red, little green, little red. All right, up over the falling 200 SMA. That's a nice work right there. Can they make a higher high? There's the high. The next high will be the rubber band candle. Okay. Okay, this is the spike candle. The next high, which will probably be today, will be the rubber band candle. Breaking the rubber band candle is essential for the bulls. All right. So here's a bearish downtrend, bearish gap right there. And you can see in the pre-market, we are not quite filled the gap yet. All right. We filled part of it, but not all of it. All right. If the bulls fail to completely fill the gap, that's not going to give me a whole lot of faith in the bulls. All right. And then I would look for 10-minute downtrends under VWAP to start developing. There's FNGA. You can see nice selling blast off into the close right there. Uptrend over VWAP. Okay. That's FNGA. Okay. Making higher lows on the 15-minute chart. Making higher lows and higher highs. Higher lows, looking for the bulls to get inspired to make a higher high. We'll see what happens. Got another bearish gap over here. That one still hasn't got filled either. Okay, so we got a bearish gap here that hasn't been filled, and we got another bearish gap over here that has not been filled. Notice this bearish gap got filled. Okay. This is a bullish gap that the bears filled very easily. Here's a bullish gap that the bears filled very easily. Okay, want to see higher highs. All right, we are seeing them in FNGA. All right, we're not seeing them in some of the other products, but we are seeing them in the FNGA. So we're looking for the next higher high. All right, let's take a look at a few sectors. All right, first sector we're going to look at, CXLE. It's the energy sector. Always want to keep an eye on energy. All right, you can see price action here, inside day, under the trap, under the 17, way underneath the all-time high anchored VWAP, quadrant 1. Okay, that's bearish. All right, that's XLE. Let's take a look at USO. Here's some crude oil, petroleum. Okay, higher low, higher high, closing in a bearish trap under a falling 17, under this 3-year high anchored VWAP. Okay, that's the post-COVID high. All right, underneath that, again, down here in quadrant 1, that's bearish. So we got XLE is bearish, oil fund is bearish. Take a look at UNG. Okay, UNG. Yesterday got a lower high and a lower low, closing under a bearish trap under the falling 17, under the uptrend line, but over the 12-month high anchored VWAP. Okay, again, you move up, you give it up, that's neutral. Notice the head and shoulders on UNG. Head, right shoulder, left shoulder. Yeah, I would look for the right arm to extend down to where the left arm left off, and maybe further. There's UNG on the daily chart, just neutral. All right, let's take a look at GLD, precious metals. Okay, GLD, new all-time high. All right, top of quadrant 4, making new all-time highs. That's bullish. All right. Anytime price is making a new all-time high, I got to believe that that's going to be bullish and in an uptrend. All right. Let's take a look at silver. Silver got a higher low and a higher high, closing over a bullish trap and over the falling 17 and over, this is a 12-year high anchored VWAP, as well as the 6-month high anchored VWAP, and over the 12-year 6-month high anchored VWAP. Almost knocking on the door of the upper third. Here's the midpoint. All right, if they get up into the upper third, that's bullish. All right now they're in a downtrend because they made lower lows. See the low here? See the low there? They made lower lows. In order to negate this downtrend, they got to take out and make a higher high. Well, there's the high up there. They have a tall order to take out that high at 31.43. Can they do it? We'll see. The dollar is falling. So there's SLV. Let's take a look at a few other sectors. SMH. SMH down here in the lower third, that's bearish. All right, got an inside day, still in the lower third, so that's bearish. See it? Underneath the falling 17, underneath the all-time high anchored VWAP. Okay, still bearish. All right, let's take a look at XLK. That would be the sibling to the SMH. XLK got a higher low and a higher high, a little bit different than SMH. All right, no longer in the lower third, so that makes it neutral. You go down, you give it up, that's neutral. Under the falling all-time high anchored VWAP, under the uptrend line, but in the bearish side of neutrality here on XLK. That is our technology sector. Let's take a look at our financial sector. And higher high, higher low, closing over bearish trap. Under the falling 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP, right here on the midpoint, that makes it neutral. Let's take a look at IYT. So transports, inside day, again, lower high, higher low, closing inside a bearish trap. Under the red dots, falling 17 EMA. Under, see the pink line, all-time high anchored VWAP. All right, down here, in the lower, in quadrant 1, that's bearish down there on IYT. All right, let's go take a look at our economic package. All right, let's start off with the dollar. All right, so here's the dollar making lower highs. So here's the high. We made a lower high, and then we inked out a lower low right here. And then we made, another lower high, and then we inked out another lower low. Okay, and then we made another lower high, and then we inked out another lower low. And not only that, we came down here, broke minor support. That would be across the top of those two peaks. Okay, now we're breaking major support. That is the valley of the consolidation. Okay, so we made lower lows. So this is in a downtrend. Okay, anytime the dollar's cheap, it makes our goods and services more affordable for foreign countries. So we'll see what happens, all right? See what happens, all right? So we got a falling dollar. That's good for the markets. Okay, not really good for the consumer, but it's great for the markets. Okay, earnings calendar, all right? No, actually, let's just go to Max Payne. Max Payne for SPY today, 5:30. All right, and a put to call ratio for the puts and calls that expire today at 4:15, about 1.4 puts to each call. All right, on the economic calendar, today's Monday. Notice Friday, we're closed. It's a short week this week. All right, nothing happening on Monday. Tomorrow, Empire State Manufacturing Index at 8:30, import-export prices 8:30, and that's it. Okay, Wednesday, retail sales 8:30, industrial production 9:15, business inventories 10, Housing market index at 10 and a petroleum report at 10:30. Okay. Thursday, housing starts and permits at 8:30, jobless claims at 8:30, Philly Fed manufacturing index 8:30, and a gas report at 10:30. Okay, so nothing exciting happening on the economic calendar this week. So whoever's in control will not have any economic data to create any obstacles and prevent them from moving to the direction they wish to move. All right? Keep a note of that. We do have earnings. So who do we have for earnings? Monday, Goldman Sachs reports 152 billion. Okay? They will have the potential to move the financial sector. All right? They're going to report this morning. M&T Bank 25 billion. Again, more familiar names, but nothing that's going to move the markets. Tuesday, we got Johnson & Johnson, 365 billion. They're going to report in the morning tomorrow. Bank of America, 273 billion. Citicorp or Citigroup, 116 billion. All right, some more financials reporting tomorrow morning as well. Wednesday, all right, ASML Holdings, there's 255 billion. Abbott Labs, 215 billion. Prologis, 87 billion. All right, so there's the big ones this week. All right, Wednesday morning. All right, ASML is taxed, so pretty sure they're going to. Usually they report in the evening. We'll see what happens. Thursday, Taiwan Semiconductors, 814 billion. They're going to report Thursday morning. All right, that's tech also. All right, that's almost $1 trillion. Okay, that can move the markets. United Health Group, 548 billion. That can also move the markets. That's $500 billion. Okay, Netflix going to report in the evening, $392 billion. American Express, 178 billion. Schwab, 139 billion. Marsh McClellan, 114 billion. Okay, big day on Thursday before our day off on Friday. All right, so the main event is probably going to be on Taiwan Semiconductor, which is right here on Thursday, last day of the month. Right there. All right, so that'll probably be the main event this week. All right, because that's big tech. I think they just go into all the they make a lot of phone chips that go into our smartphones. All right, that's it for this morning. Okay, I expressed it earlier in the room overnight. Okay, on my futures chart, again, for me, I think it's best for me right now, all right, to trade from this uptrend line, to the upside, until they break this trend line. If they break this trend line, well, then it's the bets are off, all right? I'm going to have to change my position, all right? But for right now, from the trend line, I'm looking for price to go up, all right? So I'll continue to trade in the upward direction until they break the trend, and then it's all over, all right, for right now. And I believe that for the MES and the MNQ, all right? That's for futures. For those of you out there that like to trade futures, all right, anytime I put on a 10-minute uptrend over VWAP option trade, I also put on a MES futures trade at the same time. If you ever watched MES and the SPY, you'll see that the candles on the 10-minute chart actually almost match up identically. All right, so you can have double your money, kind of like double goodness right there. All right, I'm going to go render my video. Again, I want to say thank you for everyone that showed up here to the open house. All right, we're going to have a little crash course in day trading at 10 o'clock. I don't know what you know, so I'm going to start out from the very basic beginning, starting with, guess what? The object of any business is to buy low and sell high, right? All right, that's where I'm going to start at 10 o'clock. Then I'm going to quickly transition into trends and what I'm looking for in order to take a trade. All right, I'm going to take a little break right now, all right, and render my video, and I will be back in about 35 minutes.